Hi, and welcome to Positive Thinking. My name is Theresa Borg. I'm a clinical hypnotherapist, psychotherapist, life coach, teacher of meditation, well-being and mindfulness at Bromley Adult Education College. So today we're just going to be able to do the introduction to positive thinking. These are normally 8-10-week classes. And also we do some of this kind of work on the emotional resilience courses as well. So as you can see, I'm only going to be able to do a tiny little smidgen today. But hopefully it will give you some basics and some really good things to think about. Okay, so now I'm going to just show you some slides and I'll talk in the background, and when I get to the point where I need to show you the band exercise, then I'll come back to you. So I always like to start my classes with a quote for the day, and my quote for today is, "Be the change that you want to see in the world," and that's by Gandhi. And what that really means and how that's relevant for our class today is, if I stand in front of the same window, I will always see the same scene. If I want to have a different view, I need to change where I'm standing. I need to go to another window, if you like. And so this quote really sums up that if you want to see something different in your life, think something different, have a different outcome, because your mind is creating your reality by choosing your experiences and how you see those experiences, then you need to do something different. And that's how I'm going to what I'm going to teach you today is how to change some of that. So these are our lesson goals for today. By the end of the lesson, I'll be able to describe how the mind programs by language, be able to complete the band exercise, and be able to identify the 3 layers of the mind. So the first thing that we need to understand is that the brain is a computer. It's not like a computer, it is a computer. It has hardware, the modem, your keyboard, your screen, and it also has software, and the software is the programs or the internet on your computer. In regards to what we're doing today, the brain is the hardware and the software is your files and programs, your beliefs and values that have been given to you throughout your life. So let's have an example of that. So let's take apple. There's no apple in my head. What happens is I put information together into a file or a neural net. So let's say it's red, it's green, it's round and it has a stalk. Well, all that information comes together into a file. Now, if you think about your files on your desktop, if I had a file for this course, for example, I'd have 10 weeks of slides, 10 weeks of lesson plans, 10 weeks of handouts. And it's all grouped together in one file, perhaps called positive thinking. So in the same way, the brain files things that are associated together. So let's say when I was 5 at school, I was naughty and the teacher threw an apple at my head and I cried and everybody laughed. Well, into that file or that neural net of apple now gets linked hatred of school, people laughing at me, humiliation. Now, how I'll experience that is years down the line, I'll have forgotten that experience at school, but I'll be saying things like, "Oh, I don't like apples, don't know what it is, they make me feel really ill." Well, what's really happening there is that as soon as I open file for apple, the whole file opens. And so I will experience subconscious humiliation. Now, because the brain is always trying to protect you from emotional and physical pain, it's easier for it to make me avoid apples, and therefore I have less chance of experiencing that subconscious pain. So it files through association, and these connections are continuously being formed and broken. So the neural nets are coming together and the neural nets are coming apart. And you'll have experience of this. A neural net together may be your story about your work or your boyfriend or girlfriend, and let's say you leave that job or you leave that boyfriend or girlfriend and you don't find another one. Well, we start to go, oh, maybe I'll go back. Maybe they weren't that bad. Or, oh, I should never have given up that job. Maybe maybe I should go back. And that's our neural nets. When they come apart, if we don't replace them with something more positive, then the neural net will go back together again. And we'll do some more on that in a moment. So the next thing that I want you to think about is, let's say your front door and you've got a mud path that leads to your front gate. And this is the way you leave your property. Let's say you've got a bike. So all day, every day, I'm up and down that mud path on my bike. Now, what will happen is I will form a rut in the mud. So let's call that the rut of negative thinking for this example. So all day, every day, I reinforce that rut because there's no other way to leave the property at this point. Now, if you continuously think something negative, that's going to reinforce those neural nets. And if you think about your phone or your computer, the programs that you use the most will come to the top of the desktop. The apps you use the most on your phone are on that front screen. They become the first thing you see, the first thought of choice in the mind. So if I'm thinking something negative all day long, that neural net is going to be very strong and very well embedded. It's going to be my first thought of choice. If I knock over a glass at an important business meeting and I've got a neural net, let's say my mum always told me I was stupid and clumsy and I was a bit dyspraxic maybe when I was young, then my first thought of choice will be, oh God, how embarrassing. Why is it me? Why am I always so clumsy? Whereas a person without that neural net, without that file, without that belief, will just go, oh, sorry about that, clear it up and know it was just an accident. So you are experiencing your life through these beliefs and programs, and they come in straight away. Everything is filtered through those beliefs and programs. So let's come back to my mud path. So all day, every day, if I'm reinforcing negative stories, that makes me a pessimist. So let's say now you've come to the positive thinking course and you want to become an optimist. So if we use the bike analogy, what it would mean is that I now need to find a different way to leave the property. Otherwise, I'm just going to be reinforcing that mud path, that rut. So what I need to do is I need to be aware before I even open the door that I don't put my bike down in the rut. And let's say I have some grass that I could leave the property across. So I have to be prepared to put the bike down to face the grass and then leave across the grass. Now, all day, every day, if I'm pedaling across the grass, eventually I'm going to make a rut in the mud because underneath grass is mud. But this will be the rut of positive thinking. So in some ways, I don't need to do anything about my negative thinking because I don't have to go and shovel dirt into that mud rut. The original one, the wind and the rain will cover over. It will cover over itself. The only thing I need to do is make sure I don't access that pathway anymore. Okay, so we don't have to do anything about our negative thinking except stop it and change that to a positive. Because a belief is only something that you have thought about over and over until it becomes a truth for you. All day, every day, I'm clumsy, I'm stupid, I'm clumsy, I'm stupid, I see it, that reinforces my belief. We think it's seeing is believing. Oh, see, I'm clumsy, I knocked over the glass. But really, it's believing is seeing. I have to have had that belief program first in order to experience and frame that experience in that way. The story that I tell myself. Perception is subjective. It's your story about what's going on. That's why none of us, ever see the same film, ever have the same experience. We can all be at the same event and it affects some people in one way, but it will affect somebody else in a different way. And my good example of this is I had a new boyfriend, and we started to go to a social club. Now, he'd been in the military and he'd been had a lot of post-traumatic stress, etc. And now he worked in security, and so he was ever vigilant for threat. Whereas he used to say, lived in bunny world. Everything was always happy for me, and it is. I trust people, I love the world. We used to go to the social club and have very different experiences. He would sit, we never could sit with his back towards the door because of incoming threat, and he would constantly watch the security cameras, whereas I just saw happy, lovely people playing bingo, dancing, having a laugh. So we were in the same place at the same time, but having a very different experience of it because of our beliefs about the world. So how do we change the way that we think? How do we become the optimist instead of the pessimist? Well, a really good exercise is the band exercise. So you get a band of some kind, something that you can change over really quickly and easily. So it could be a ring, it could be a watch, but a band works really well, even if it's an old elastic band or a charity band or something. And if you haven't got a band, you can squeeze the wrist. But I really do suggest you get a band, and I'll explain why. Okay, so first thing that I want to do before I do this is I just want you to close your eyes for a moment for me. And I want you to imagine your life, every single area, work, home, family, how it would be if you were really in control of your thoughts and you were really in control of your behaviour. Just think, just look around your life. If you were really in control of your thoughts and you were really in control of your behaviour, how fabulous would your life be? Just take a moment to look all around. What difference that would make in all the different areas. And open your eyes. Now, I've done this thousands of times in the class. Everyone always goes, oh yeah. Because think about it. If you wanted to give up smoking, you'd be able to do it like that. If you wanted to lose weight, you'd be able to do it like that. It would solve all of your problems. So how do we get to that point where you are in control of your thoughts and you are in control of your behaviour? So one of the tools, again, this is just the beginning, but one of the tools is the band. So what you must do is, every time you catch yourself saying, doing or thinking something negative or something that you want to change, you must catch yourself and stop. Now you can ask family and friends to tell you. People will love to tell you, oh, that wasn't very positive, was it? So get people on board to help you if you can, if you're not too embarrassed, but you can do it on your own. So you catch yourself. So let's say I've spilt that glass and my first thought is, oh God, why is it me? And I go, no. And that's me then stopping that negative neural net being accessed. No. And then I change the band over to the other hand. Now, some people teach you can ping it, but I can ping this all day, every day and not have any break in my thought whatsoever. But at least if I do this, I've got more chance of stopping that thought process. Because what you notice is, I don't just go, oh, how clumsy. I go, oh God, why is it always me? Why am I so clumsy? I've always been like this. My mum always, and down and down. And now I won't get the job. The negative spiral down. So if we can stop that right at the beginning and go, no. We're not reinforcing that neural net. We're not building that neural net. Now look at this beautiful bicep. Woo! Now, what happens if I stop going to the gym? That neural net will, that bicep will dissipate away. Now there's a phrase that works with the body and the brain, use it or lose it. If I don't use that pathway, if I don't use this neural net of negativity, it will come apart. All I have to do is build the positive one. So I stop. That's me stopping accessing that negative story. I change the band over to the other hand. What I'm doing is I'm coming out of the head into the body. I'm doing something physical to break the state. And now I have to build the positive neural net. And so we say our mantra or our affirmation, which is just because the brain programs by language, a piece of text that builds the new belief. Remember, a belief is only a thought that you've kept thinking over and over again till it becomes a truth. So now I say, with feeling, I am in control of my thoughts, I am in control of my behaviour. So in the scenario where I'm knocking over the glass, oh God, I'm so close. No, I'm in control of these thoughts, I'm in control of this behaviour, it was an accident, move on. And so you do this all day, every day. Now they say it takes 30 days to make a permanent change in the brain, to build your neural net. However, that obviously depends on how much you're doing it. So if I'm only doing it once a day, it's going to take me a lot longer, and in fact it's going to be very hard because the neural net is going to be going together, coming apart. But if I do this diligently for at least a week, by the end of the week that neural net is going to be built and going to be fairly strong, and then you just keep doing it until it becomes your first thought of choice. And people often say they can hear my voice in their head saying, no, I am in control of my thoughts, I am in control of my behaviour. And so this band exercise is the starting point in which you are taking control of your mind. Now you know how it works, and now you are in control of building these new neural nets, and every behaviour comes from a thought. Every behaviour is an instruction from the mind. The mind tells the body what to do and it follows. And if I'm nervous at that meeting and, oh God, please don't let me knock over the glass of wine, I'm actually in this kind of state subconsciously and more likely to knock over the wine than actually if I never had any of that thought whatsoever. So I hope that's clear. That's the band exercise. And I'll just return to the screens and just reinforce that for you. And so here we can see stop, change the band. That's akin to now changing the bike over towards the grass, pedalling across the grass, saying our positive affirmation. Now, all positive affirmations have to be in the present tense. So it has to be positive, powerful, present tense. And whatever you say after I am is an unequivocal instruction to the brain and the body. So I am so clumsy is an instruction to the body to become clumsy. So I am in control of my thoughts, I am in control of my behaviour, becomes a powerful instruction to both the mind and the body. So let's now talk about the 3 layers of the mind. Now Freud compared the mind to an iceberg. As you can see here, the tip of the iceberg, we use that phrase because only 5% of an iceberg can be seen above the water. 2% of an iceberg, if I stood on the edge of the water and looked down, I can see a little bit of the iceberg before it gets too deep. That leaves 93% of the iceberg unseen or unknown. That's why they're dangerous to ships, because you can't tell how far they're coming out. You can't see at a certain depth of the water. Now, how that relates to the mind is, the conscious mind is just 5% of your mind. Now, we're taught the conscious mind is everything, but it really isn't. The conscious mind lives in the now. It's like the file on the top of your desk that you're working on at the moment. Okay, and it takes in 7 pieces of information: what you're seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and what you think and feel about it in this moment now. Okay, so that's all. 2% is what we call short-term memory or pre-conscious. So if I say to you now, what did you have for dinner yesterday? Well, what normally happens is people go, and it takes them a moment and they go, oh yeah, fish and chips. So what that means is, if we were in an office, for example, we know the conscious mind is what you're working on at the moment. It would be like searching around the desktop to find that file and go, oh, here it is, yeah, fish and chips. So it's kind of information that's easily accessible, readily available, but not sitting in the front of your conscious mind at the moment. So this big 93% unconscious, subconscious, whatever you want to call it, is full of our projections, our shadows, things we've suppressed and repressed. And what that really means is a lot of stuff that we don't want to own about ourselves, stuff that we've forgotten, stuff that we deny about ourselves, and stuff that we don't actually even remember. I had a lady who came to me in her 40s. Obviously, I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. She wanted to learn to swim. And she'd been to private classes, and the coach had said, I can't do anything with you. Now, she was in a small pool, and what would happen is whenever she would try to let go of the float, she would go under with one arm leading, pulling her under. Now, that makes no sense. Really, you should just put your feet down. So that I know that's muscle memory. That's something recorded in the muscle that is trying to be released. So to cut a long story short, we do regression, and what we discover is that she used to go on holiday when she was 5 or 6 with her family, and they would swim in a big lake. And one day she was caught under by some weeds, and I think there was a bike involved as well. And she actually drowned. And she was pulled out and she was resuscitated. Now, she had no idea of this. Any of this was in there. Her only memory relating to this was she remembers there being a massive row between her mum and her uncle, and she was never allowed to go back on holiday there again. So I'm not suggesting there's anything this dark in your subconscious minds, but there are things that we suppress and repress to the point that sometimes we have no memory of them. And again, that's the mind trying to protect her, trying to move her. She develops a fear of swimming so that she never gets into that situation again. So it's quite reasonable, and as I say, the brain is trying to protect you. But there comes a point where she's missing out on life when she goes on holiday with her friends. She's the one sitting on the edge all the time, and she wants to be in the mix. So there's a point in life where we weigh up cost versus gain, and the mind says, okay, you're responsible now, it's time we let this go. You won't be swimming in lakes anymore, etc., etc. So that's the point. We don't know often, what's in that subconscious. Now, if we go back to the office metaphor, so the conscious mind is the file that you're working on today. The pre-conscious mind is the stuff that's around the desk that you could just reach out and pull over. But the unconscious or the subconscious mind, that's like the big archives of old files. And if you've worked in an office, normally you have to get a key, and you might have to go down the stairs to the basement, and then you've got to look through the years to find the actual file. So there's a little bit more work to do to find that information, and a different technique. It's not readily available, but it's there. And that's what my job as a hypnotherapist is to go and get that information out of the archives for you. In fact, I now have really quick, easy tools where we can all do it, and we can all do it quickly. But, the belief is that if it's unconscious, that you don't have access to it when we actually do. So the thing that we need to understand here is that all of our problems are in our head, and a result of our definition about a thing, a person, or an event. So the beliefs that you have in your mind, the story that you tell about any event, is going to define whether you suffer from it or not. Every situation or event is neutral. It's how you define what is happening that will colour your experience of it. So if I go back to the original story that we're using about knocking over the glass of wine, you can see that the actual neutral event is some wine has been spilt. That's all that's happened. Some liquid has been spilt. If I tell myself the story, it's because I'm so clumsy and stupid, my boss is going to see this, and now he won't employ me, or he'll think badly of me, or whatever it may be. That's just a story in my head. If that happens to person B, who doesn't have those beliefs and values, It's just an accident that gets cleared up and nobody suffers from it whatsoever. In fact, you might make a joke of it. So we are living our lives with the stories that we choose to tell. If you think about the word history, his story, it's your story about your past. And it's actually possible to bring that past event into this moment now and to what we call reframe it, to change it. I spend a lot of my time with people in therapy going back to their childhood stories, because think about it, your computer comes with factory settings, programs that are already on it, and even from the womb you are being programmed. You are being programmed with your mother's beliefs, your family's beliefs, your ancestral programming through your DNA. So when you're born, you already have a certain amount of programming. We are conscious in the womb. What they now have discovered is that babies, because the brain is already formed by 15 weeks, the amygdala, the fear-based system, is already formed by 15 weeks, you're already recording and working out fear and victimhood and things like this. So often we go right back to childhood, find what I call the root program. Now, things look very different to a child. So when you are a great big adult standing over a child, wagging your finger in its face, for example, what that child sees is this God of my world. You are the God of that. The parent is the God of that child's world because they provide and protect that child. All that child knows is I have made this person very angry, and often they don't know why. So they come to a conclusion that they are bad or they are wrong. And that becomes root programming from which all of the weeds and the patterns of your experiences now come and reinforce each other. Seeing is believing, believing is seeing, continuously building that neural net until it's a belief. And that's what you believe you are. But when you go back and you look at that event for the child with adults' eyes, you get them to see the mum was just angry. She wasn't saying you were a bad, terrible person. She was just saying, that you'd upset her, or she was tired, and, whatever that story may be. You change the story, and then you are changing the way that person feels about that event, and it's much easier to let it go. And so the phrase to remember, positive definition in, positive outcome out. The story that you tell yourself about any event, any person, and more importantly about yourself will define your experience. And that is why they say you are the creator of your own reality. So I want to thank you for joining me today. All of the classes are available at www.baec.ac.uk. Wellbeing, psychology or meditation, my classes are under, and I hope you've enjoyed today. Any questions, I'm more than happy to answer either through the college or if you wanted to contact me direct, that's fine.